I was watching like a documentary. It was on YouTube. I don't know how I found it, but it was 1988, like Road to Mr. Olympia.
Oh yeah,
And
I had
Rich
that,
Gaspari is from Edison.
bro. I
Is
had that
that
on VHS. He was from Edison. He
Yeah? Tom
trained,
Glass is the worst narrator of all time. I
dude.
couldn't. It was so bad.
I
Go
remember
ahead. Go ahead.
that. He trained at a gym. It wasn't the first gym I trained at because I was too scared to go there, but it was called Dynamic Fitness
Yeah.
and 7,500 square feet. The owner
Holy cow.
welded everything. So if anything broke, he'd put
Yeah.
up like a curtain. He'd be
Yeah.
welding dumbbells together.
That's
And
awesome.
there was, ton of bodybuilders, a few powerlifters, and the powerlifters trained like near the back. The guy built a platform, and supposedly this article was out before our time. It was out in like the 80s in what was that magazine? Powerlifting USA.
Yeah.
And it was about how to build your own platform. So what they did was they took car tires and they stacked them doubles. And I think like
Car tires.
car tires, so 8x8 or 10x10 feet, framed it out with plywood, put horse stall mats on top, and then just a squat rack. So the powerlifters would train on that squat rack, on that platform. If they were not there, it was like you were too scared. You're like, if I go on here and word gets out that I was here, I will die.
They got some
So
kind of force field around the platform or something, or
yeah,
they're taking pictures.
force field,
That's what was on your platform.
I was like, man, they will kill me. So when I was there, Rich had already moved to California. I think he moved to California at age 20, but he was from the same side of Edison. Edison had two sides of town. He was from the south side. I ran into him like 2 years ago, going into I was walking at Whole Foods. He was walking in, and he's walking in. And he had like two other guys. And I was like, Rich, I was like, my name's Zach. I used to train at Dynamic Fitness. I, grew up in Edison, and now I'm down here. So he lives somewhere in this Jersey Shore area. So then his partner's immediately like, where's your gym? We should get you some supplements. Right away, try to sell me on stuff. It's like, hey, Zach, this is my, gym. You like introduce me to your son. Hey, great. Let me tell you about my gym. You're like, whoa.
I got
dude,
some
I
books
just
they
met
like
you,
to
man.
sell you.
Yeah, I just met you, dude. So interesting times. And he had won the first, it was called the Arnold Classic back then. 89, I think, maybe 90. And so a buddy of mine, he was 2 years older. He said that when Rich was training for the Arnold Classic, he was in the posing room like 8 hours a day. He'd lift, and you heard whatever song it was going nonstop in the posing room. He was just, man on a mission.
Very
So
dedicated.
Jim Wendler, Strong Life Podcast, episode 255. Listen, speaking of, I actually don't want to give the hint. Where did we first actually meet in person? Do you remember?
Oh boy. I have like no memory of anything. I think it's old age, and like I just blame football.
Yeah.
So give me a short hint.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. I'll tell you who was there. James Thinker Smith, Joe DeFranco, Buddy Morris, of course, Dave. Yeah, that's the hint. You had to drive through the hood to get there.
It was a Parisi.
Not Parisi.
When we did the Joe DeFranco seminar?
It was at Michael Hope set it up for us. So Michael lived in Syracuse.
You're talking about when we're at the hotel?
We're at a hotel, but we met up at Michael's house.
Funny because I've been through a lot of ghettos.
I know that. I couldn't narrow it down.
I got pulled over in Patterson.
Oh, dude. I think when you rented a car, I recall this.
It was me, Dave, and I don't know who else.
That was for the seminar at Joe's new gym.
Yeah. So I got pulled over, and they're like, "Have you been drinking?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Then why are you here?" No, I was like, listen, man, we're not from around here. He's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, listen, I can't find my hotel because there's tons of what do you call it? Construction everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And so like things get screwed up. And I was like, listen, I'm just trying to find my hotel. He's like, listen, I'm gonna get in front of you. You're gonna follow me. Tell me the hotel. You got to get out of here right now. And that's the second time I got stuck in. I was going to a I Hate God show in Cincinnati, and the road. It's just whatever. I got lost, and I got pulled over too by a cop. And I was like, what did I do? I'm like going 10 miles an hour because I'm looking for the venue.
Yep.
And the cop gets out. He's like, you gotta go. You gotta go. Because I had a pickup truck. So he knows I'm not from there. And he's like, dude, go. I'm like, how do I turn around? He's like, just do an illegal U-turn and get the hell out of here now.
Dude,
And
a lot of America, I mean, people, I don't think people should be offended when I say, oh, that's the hood. So a lot of America is supposedly a lot of like, you got a nice area, then you got the hood, then you got the farm, then you're going. Sometimes I feel safer in the hood when I'm like driving through.
It's, we've been living in the small town Ohio for so long that I'm uncomfortable anywhere that there's any more than like 3 people in front of me at a stoplight. It's just, and it's funny because all these, for the last God knows how long, people from the country or from farm towns got made fun of, and now everyone's like, dude, how do we get out there? I'm sick of the city. Everyone's sick of the city now.
I heard
so.
You were on a podcast with our buddy Mark Valenti, and you were talking about people moving in. And so I was thinking about you because this summer we had a lot of people moving to this little town from New York because it's like a mass exodus. Yeah. They said New York City is just a ghost town. And so we're in this like little beach town, not far from where Juliet grew up. But once Memorial Day hits, you would not want to come here. So you don't even want to drive. I'll just ride my bike. And now I got to tell my kids, like, look, you ride your bike. People aren't necessarily watching where they're driving. They're looking at their phone.
Yeah.
So, dude.
That's what do you want to know, babe? Hold on. Manasquan?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Tell Juliet I said hi.
He says hello. She's right here. She doesn't want to be any part of this.
What? Listen.
She wants to be behind the scenes at all times.
Yes.
She's get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, she wouldn't get a word in between you and me. Are you kidding me?
Dude.
Shut up.
So
I'm telling a weird story. Dude, that Michael Hope seminar, I remember because I shaved my head that day and I cut my head and wouldn't stop bleeding. And I just always remember that, like, because when you cut your head, dude, it just bleeds forever.
That was when you invited me to be on the EFS Q&A team.
Oh, okay.
Back then, there was barely anybody on the Q&A team. The only private gym owner on the Q&A team was Joe.
Yeah.
All the other guys were code word, 62, Coach X,
I love how like everyone knew who it was. It was just, listen, just for, yeah, that's right. I talked to Miss Linsky a couple years ago, and he's just him and Buddy are just a wealth of knowledge. But I asked him, I asked Milo, I said, hey, this is football wise. I said, with the college football running like all that zone read stuff and mobile quarterbacks, is the NFL going to change? He's like, there's no way. Quarterbacks get paid too much money. And I said, well, what other things have you seen? He said the physical and technical development of offensive linemen are so bad because when they run that hurry up offense, the defense never has a chance to really get set. They can't stunt. So they just basically back up and punch. Where in the NFL, you can't run that kind of offense. You have to control the ball a little bit. And so the defense is much more structured and the offensive linemen are getting plowed. And he said, the only ones that come out good, generally speaking, is like Wisconsin, Alabama, Ohio State, and Iowa. So I think those are the 4 schools.
Yeah.
That they all run like a very, even though obviously Ohio State and Alabama run a wide open offense, they're always very physical. And it's funny because no matter what you do, you can't take the physicality out of football. They try to legislate it, with illegal hits, and they're like, dude, that's the only way you can play.
Yeah, interesting.
And
So Wisconsin and Ohio State are in the Big Ten, and then who'd you say? Alabama.
Iowa is too, and then Alabama. They're all teams that play incredibly physical football. They're always, even with Iowa and Wisconsin, they're not going to win a national championship, but they always have like 9 wins. Like I like their fan bases because and this is going to go, there's a lot of teams out there. Like there's 3 really good teams. Everyone else is just horrible compared to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's such a chasm between Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. But these other teams think that they can be that too, and they just keep on firing their coaches. Like, you lost 2 games, you're the worst.
Why can't they compete? You think it's just recruiting talent?
It's not recruiting because like LSU, Michigan, all these Texas, they all get great recruits, as does these other schools, Alabama, Clemson. I think in the cases of these big time schools, that the big difference is when I think it's such a part of their culture that maybe they exceed expectations sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when you're expected to run a 5-minute mile, you're going to run as hard as you can. And you may only run a 6:15, but it's way better than you would have run if you had expectations of a 7:30 mile. I also think, and it's rare in a big team sport like that, for a head coach to make a huge difference. And what I mean by that is some guys will make a couple win difference, but with like Nick Saban and the Dabo Swinney at Clemson, I just think they're so far and beyond better leaders than anyone else. And they also pick great assistants. One of the things, who, boy, I can't remember anything. The higher you go up in levels in football, the more the assistants come into play. So by the time you reach the NFL, that head coach is just there waving. He's the one that takes all the heat. But I don't know how much on the field coaching they really do. Does that make so? When you're a Pee Wee guy, your head coach does everything. Like the assistants are just that dad down the corner who could just rely on to get there on time. He doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if your kid wants to play soccer and they ask you to help out, you're like, yeah, set up the cones. I don't know anything about soccer. I know how to make a straight line.
This is assistant coach Jim Wendler, kids.
And I come out with a football helmet. But I still think I know the one thing, and I think you understand this. Like if you had a massive gym, just private training, you're only as good as the people you hire.
Truth, 100%.
I think these guys hire great coaches. I really do. And you can see it at Alabama because they always getting new coaches in because everyone from Alabama, like as soon as a guy does well at Alabama, like, fuck him, we're hiring him as a head coach. But here we go. I mean, they lose coaches all the time. But Clemson has a long, like and Oregon had this for a while too. Their coaches stay there. They want to be loyal. They like working there. They don't need the ego boost or the challenge, let's say that, and that's, I don't know. It's just crazy. My oldest son loves football and we talk about it all the time. It's so weird that there's such a big difference between those 3 schools and everyone else. I mean, everyone else is just, looking for scraps.
Well, even so, Ohio State just beat Clemson by like 20-something points, right?
It's like 400-2.
So, all right. So that's like the set. Ohio is 1st or 2nd in the country, and Clemson's like 3rd or 4th. Massive, massive difference.
And then, according to, you can also have a bad game. And there's a lot of stuff. But Alabama, like last year, LSU was so above and beyond everyone else because they had a great quarterback and great receivers, a lot of stuff. But it's just really interesting, even at that level, how much one player can make a difference. It's unbelievable. Because like if you're a Pee Wee kid, Pee Wee football, and you have like the ringer back there, it's like, fuck it, just snap it to him. It'll change your entire game. And usually as you go up, it lessens. But even at that level, you got Joe Burrow or something, or Justin Fields from Ohio State. It's crazy. I mean, I don't. Have you ever? Do you know who Derrick Henry is?
No, I don't follow football enough, but I've seen. Derrick Henry, where's he from?
He went to high school in Florida, went to Alabama, won the Heisman Trophy. And now he's like the stud running back in the NFL. But hold on, I'm watching the LSU Alabama game. His last year, and they're like, Derrick Henry's had a great high school career. He rushed for 4,000 yards. And I was like, did they say he rushed for 4,000? 4,000 yards is a great high school career. He did that his senior year.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was, but I was at my parents' house and I didn't know how to work their TV very well because, they had like the weird remote because I'm not
Yep.
used to it. I couldn't rewind it because I'm like, did they just say his senior year or was that?
That's crazy.
He hasn't reached a level yet where he has any competition. Like even the pros are just bouncing off him.
Where's he playing now?
Tennessee Titans. He's like 6'4", 250. He plays running back.
Damn. One of the girls I know
What's that?
one of the girls I know coaches there. She was at UPenn. Then she was and she had like the women's deadlift record. She deadlifted 500 pounds, weighing like 148 or something. She's with the Tennessee Titans, I guess like seasonal. So this season she was with them.
Okay.
And just thinking of football, Jim, you mentioned coaches. I'm not following it in detail. I just look at the
Sorry,
score.
man.
No, that's all right. But Rutgers brought back Shiano, and they've been close. Like they're losing to bigger teams.
Yes.
Close.
Shiano, the weird thing about him was when he moved on, he didn't do shit.
Yeah.
Now
What
he
is
went
that?
up to the pros, which is an entirely different game. But he has something going at Rutgers. Like remember when for years Rutgers was like barely a community college team.
Yeah.
And then he came in, all of a sudden they're winning. I mean, it took a little bit of time, and now he comes back, and it's just something about what he can do there.
Think about this. He came back during all this COVID when it's like, you can't go to the gym, you can't lift. And I'm like, all right, he got them doing that with real shitty circumstances. What's going to happen when they could actually be on campus, get fed, 4 or 5 meals a day? They could lift on the regular.
I think that with those coaches, though, I mean, obviously they game plan very well, but there's something mentally that they're doing, something that they inspire. I wrote an article about this, like how to get kids to buy in.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the second most oft question I get asked. Like, hey, when you came there, how did you get the kids to buy in? And there's a lot of factors that go in there. It's not just one. For the most important thing was our head coach was all behind it. Like he had already set the tone for discipline and being there, and everything was important. But the coach, you have to inspire the kid, not inspire. You have to be the example that they want to follow. And so as an example, I never ask the kids to do something that I don't do, haven't done, or I have the equivalent discipline that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
So when the kids see like, hey, Coach Wendler wants us to do this, I'm like, dude, I know what this is like. I do this very similar thing, and I expect this out of myself. So I expect this out of you too. If you tell the kids to go study all the time and you barely did anything like that, then don't expect them to listen. Because man, I tell you, kids can smell bullshit a mile away.
Oh, dude,
they'll buy in for like a couple months and they'll just stop.
I think what you're saying is so spot on. I've said so many times to coaches is I'm like, the kids are going to do what the head coach tells them to do. And so if a head coach says to a team, hey, we're all going to go train at the underground, or we're doing this, or you guys are going to see Jim on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the majority of them, they're going to do what the head coach tells them to do. And I also
not just tell them to do what he personally exhibits.
Yeah. What about too? You're a dad. I'm assuming what you would tell the kids is pretty much exactly what you would tell your own kids.
Well, the one thing, because I have an older son who plays football, and whenever I get frustrated with the kid, which, as you know, probably happens, I don't know, 300 times a training day, I always make sure in my head, I'm like, what would, if that was my son and I was a different coach, how would I want them treated? And that's exactly how I do it.
Jim,
and
that is what I tell my coaches. I have the 2 locations. One of them has kids, but I tell them, I go, here's how you coach. You step outside of your body and you make pretend you're watching a group, and the person coaching is coaching your son or your daughter. What do you want that coach to say to your kid? Is it only good job? Or do you want that coach on his or her phone? Do you know, what would you want being said to your own kids? I think being a dad has made me infinitely a better coach.
Yeah, I think it has too. I mean, there's a lot of like layers in there, but I see how my own son is coached, and I see massive flaws in there.
Where is
And
he in Texas?
yeah, yeah, and I'll give you I don't give a fuck if they hear this; they won't hear this.
Let's
Like,
mention names. F those guys.
Yeah,
Just
that's right. I'll hold up the name so you can take a still shot. But they have my son's high school has such great facilities that when the national championship game was played there, Alabama went to their high school.
I've seen Texas high schools. It's
Yeah,
insane.
because they have an indoor facility. Their weight room is insane.
How big is it? I've seen like 12,000 square feet.
I think they
8,000.
have. I only seen pictures of it, so I can't give you square footage. But it's as nice of a weight room as you'll find, even in a small college.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just unbelievable. And like, they don't have a dedicated strength coach. They just kind of let the kids go in there and they write something on the board, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's very frustrating. And one of the, the weight room looks great, but I always say this, every seminar I do, because people ask me about facilities and stuff. I said, it's great to have a great facility. It makes your job much easier. However, if you and me, let's say we're the greatest strength coaches in the world or something.
We are.
I mean, let's just say
the fact.
That's right. I don't want to have to lie here. But let's say we went in the most advanced nuclear submarine in the world. All right. The most amazing. So you and I are in there, that thing's just going right to the bottom. It's just, we're fucking dying. That's all it is. Because you got to have someone running the ship. So, don't be so concerned. I mean, it's great to have great facilities and have stuff that you have that you need to run your program. But at the end of the day, you need someone captaining the ship. And even if the ship's got some holes in it, he knows how to repair them. And so I think a lot of times people get wrapped up in, especially in recruiting. And I understand it. Like, it looks like this, or, it's amazing. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if you got no one running the ship. In our weight room at London, is really, I think it's awesome but it's not the nicest thing in the world. We don't have all the pristine bells and whistles. We have 16 full racks, and we got rid of anything that wasn't that a group of 50 kids couldn't use. For example, like, if you have we do have one lat pull down in there, but we don't program the lat pull down. How are you going to do that? 50 kids going to do, 6 sets of lat pull downs? Yep. It would take all day. So we got rid of almost everything in there. So we have a big wide open space to do all our jumping and, cartwheels and shit like that. And then it's just dumbbells, barbells, and racks. And, we just make it work like that. So the point being is, you got to have someone running the ship. And I'm not saying I'm the best coach at all. I'm really not, because I have tons of flaws. But I think having some principles, I think that makes a big difference. And, I give a shit. Like, it drives me bananas when we don't do things the way I want them to be done. And Juliet will tell you, for a long time, we only had one car. So she would drop me off at the school, or I'd walk to school and she'd pick me up. And probably once a week, she'd pick me up, and I'd be like, my God, I am the worst fucking coach in the world. I can't figure this stuff out. I don't know why I'm here. Just for 2 years. And I still get like that. I stay up at night when we have a bad workout. I'm like, what did I do? It's always on me, because I'm running the fucking show.
Yeah.
It's extreme ownership. And sometimes I think that the people are so quick to pass it off on the kids, or, maybe they're not working hard enough. Well, that's on you. That's on the head coach. So, and Zach, as much as I love lifting weights and stuff, I really understood, and this was later on, how much football meant to me, and what it gave to me. And I love football more than anything. And I love watching our team. We were from a very small school, and I watch our kids. My first year, I didn't strength train anything the first year. I was on the field coach, and then watching them over the years just become for us, one of the most dominant teams in our area. And we don't, I always joke, because we never pass the ball. It's just fucking downhill. And so you have to be physical. Like, no one wants to play us anymore.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
We've had 4 teams now stay there. They won't play us anymore.
Do you guys, like in New Jersey, public schools will still play against private schools, which is the
Yeah,
private
we
schools
have-
have kids from all over.
Yeah, we have, I believe, in our conference, one private school. It costs like $23,000 or $25,000 a year to go there.
Yeah.
In fact, my very first year, that was the last game of the season, and they beat the living shit out of us. Okay, I mean, it was so bad, dude. We didn't even cross the 50.
Damn.
The next year, they came to our place, and at the time, I think we were both 4-0. It was early on in the season, 3-0, 4-0, something like that. And they hadn't had a touchdown scored against them all year. It was 28-0 in the first quarter. That's how much we beat the crap out of them. 28 in the first quarter. You know, they're all like, no one's scoring on us. And it was like, well, here we go. And that was all running. So I felt like that was like a kind of my coming to age moment, so to speak. I'm like, okay, we're doing things right here. You know, a team that was so highly regarded that beat us up last year was having a great season this year. And, you know, the other thing I think a lot of times is we tend to take a lot of credit when it's appropriate, like when we think it's appropriate, I guess. And when in reality, when in reality, hold on one second.
Yep.
In any sport, no matter what sport, there's a million moving parts going on.
Yes.
So we're just one part of it. And I understand that. And the good thing is in my situation, like I don't tell the coach what defense to run, right? Or what to do, and he doesn't tell me what to do. That's not his job. And one of the things, like the head coach is one of my best friends. I didn't know him before I started, and we get along great.
How did the whole, you know, I think you were a volunteer at first, right, Jim?
Yeah, well, I still am a volunteer.
All right. So how did it start? A lot of people ask about this because at the public school level, usually it's the football coach running the weight room.
Because he doesn't have any choice. Yeah,
well, there are private guys that reach out, you know, to offer to help.
Yes,
but
there are.
It often, you know I tried doing it in my early years.
So did I. I've done it too.
Right.
And I got rejected.
Why do you, so talk about how this worked out or why you think it worked out.
There is a guy who works at EFS named Matt Goodwin.
Yep.
And Matt Goodwin's son played football at London, and Matt reached out. He's like, dude, is there any way you can help the team out?
Nice.
I said, yeah, you know, I'll do that. And I had just got done writing my last book, and it took about a year. So I was like the grumpiest bastard in the world. Like my wife's like, you got to get out of here. Like, I don't want to see you anymore. And then internally I thought to myself, I'm like a big libertarian kind of guy. And I'm like, if I'm about helping the community, this is something I can do. And what I need to put my personal, political, whatever you want to say it, principles. I'm like, am I just going to sit around and tell everyone else they need to help and I'm not willing to do it? So that was another thing. I'm like, well, here I have an opportunity. I have free time, you know. And the other thing was, you know, I know the training works, but can I get it to work? So I was like, well, shit, here goes nothing. Now, originally I was just on the field coach. And then it kind of morphed into like the head coach was doing all this work. He was head of the weight room and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm getting blown up here.
Your peoples.
That's right. I said, let me just take some of this pressure off you. Because you know, when you're a head coach, not only do you call all the play, do everything, but you're handling
year-round job now for the high school coach.
All the personal issues you have to deal with, all the weird stuff. So anyway, to make a long story short, I started during that first season, I took the JV, who we treat as an off season. I said, listen, we're going to teach you how to do the few things here. At the beginning, first 6 weeks, all we did was dumbbell squats and push-ups. I just taught them what we're looking for and just to create a work ethic and stuff like that. But it started off as just me volunteering as a on the field football coach, and it morphed into that. And it was really something I felt like I needed to do personally to help my community. And, you know, again, like a lot of coaches will say, like, you know, they want to be part of something, but I decided I didn't want to get paid for it because I think, like, we're in a small town. What are they going to pay me anyway? And number two, like, I haven't proven myself to anyone. So, like, why would they, you know?
Yeah.
And but anyway, it just started morphing into that. And my first season there, we won 3 games, and we took 1 week off after the season, after that horrendous game that we played, and we had 100% turnout the next week for training. So not only these kids just got beaten down and battered, but now they said, okay, we're willing to trust you. I'm willing to put in the work, even though like they had nothing to, there's no success to build on.
Right.
And I think that was one of our greatest assets was, if you went 5-5, for example, you can justify some of the stuff that you did and say, well, maybe if we would have done this little thing differently, but for the most part, we're all right. But when you have a bad season, you just turn everything around. Like, screw it. What do you have to lose? I remember having that conversation. Can it get any worse? Like, no, let's just change everything. So from that point on, we just looked at everything logically. For example, like two-a-days, we got rid of two-a-days. We train year round in the weight room. We run, we lift. The point of two-a-days originally was most of the kids didn't have any of that stuff. We needed to get the kids back into shape. Right. But we're already doing it now. So why exhaust the kids, for 14 days of horrible training? And now by the time the first game rolls around, they're exhausted.
Yeah, now they're in shape. You've got them in shape.
Yeah, so we're already in shape. So why do we need all this? So we started just our two-a-days is just 1 a day, and we lift 3 days a week throughout the two-a-days, and that's one of our practices, so to speak. And so I think the greatest blessing we had was having a bad season. I honestly remember it was like the George Costanza thing. You remember Seinfeld when he decided to do the opposite of everything? Because he's like, screw it, So and at the end of like the 2 weeks or whatever it was, he had like a beautiful girlfriend. He got a raise. Everyone liked him. It was like he just like every thing I wanted to do, I just did the opposite. Like, so we did. We changed everything up, and like we don't condition after practice. And people think that's nuts, but we don't have enough kids. Our practices are 2 hours long or an hour and a half or whatever it is. They're running around as it is. Why do you have to make them?
I agree.
Anymore?
If practice is hard enough, like when a wrestler says that to me, I go, here's the best way to get in wrestling shape. I go, when you drill, if I walk in and watch you drill, it should look like a live match. You should be going so fast. Of course, don't make it look like shit.
Yes.
But the philosophy is if you're always ready, we don't have to get ready. But Jim, what about
you don't
the
have
kids?
To cram for the test.
Yeah. You got kids that do multiple sports, I'm sure, in the school. Let's say you got. So what do they do?
A lot of kids wrestle or play basketball. They lift in the off season. They lift 3 days a week too.
What time do you lift at?
We lift. This is generally speaking. minus all this COVID
Craziness,
shit.
Yeah.
Just right after school, 2:30.
So what time would they go to like
other
practice?
Kids lift during 8th period, like the last period of the day.
Yeah.
And they know what to do.
Yep.
We'll back off a little bit of their training, a little bit, but for the most part, they're in there and they know exactly what to do. I've changed a lot of things, but the core stuff remains the same. So the kids get their workout sheets. They know what's expected of them. Now if I'm running a group, we'll make some twists and turns as I see.
Right.
And, but for the most part, as long as the kids get their main lift in and their 1 or 2 assistance lifts in, I'm good. They're running and they're doing all their stuff during basketball and wrestling. So
that's their conditioning.
Yeah. And even like when we go run now, it'll be like 10 hundreds. Okay. I'm not here to beat the crap out of you.
Yep.
But what happens is if you run, 10 hundreds or 15 50s or something, 3 days a week, magically you get in pretty good shape without having to kill yourself. It's the same idea as you don't have to cram for the test. If you study 10 minutes or 20 minutes every day, you don't have to cram for the test for the final.
Yeah, that's actually how I used to study in college. Yeah. I was like, I cannot do this like whole thing the night before. A week out, I would do like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. What Jim, Ohio was ahead of the curve with all the closures. They sued the State Department of Health and the governor, and gyms got to open. And then I think when you were chatting with Mark, you were letting the kids, they were trained out of your garage gym.
Yes.
So that was like, you have
That was
a,
right when the shit went down. I said, fuck it, bring them over here.
yeah, man. And I heard you talk about how it was so great for them emotionally.
Yeah, we had, in fact, at the end of this season, all the kids that trained in my garage were like, man, that was the best part of this year, because it was, you feel like you're kind of like the pirates, like
Yes.
screwing everyone over. And because the weight room obviously is very small, but they're all close together. They get a lot of camaraderie and stuff like that. And even we trained 5 days a week because like they weren't going to do anything else. I
How'd
don't
you break up
normally
the
want
training?
kids, wake up and they just train. So we just divided the days up. One day was like a strength day. We just did the main lifts, and we got chairs out. So the kid would do a lift, the other kid would get up. It was just like old school powerlifting, having fun.
Yeah.
That was on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday were our assistance circuits and our kind of conditioning stuff. And it's not ideal.
What does that circuit look like, Jim? I've heard some of your finisher circuits, which are awesome. What is the?
We're not even. We start every training day with the circuit now.
Okay.
So it's our. So for example, when we were here, now a lot of it is what I have available. You have to understand that. So we'd have, I think, 8 guys here. So 4 guys would go push the Prowler out in the street, and then the 4 guys would do a circuit. So the way I have the weight room set up, there'd be like kind of one pulling movement.
Yep.
So it might be straight leg deads because we have a platform.
Yep.
We have a monolift where they would either do some kind of press or some kind of squat. We had a bench press where they do some kind of, depending on, it's just basically one press, one squat, one hinge, and then something else.
Nice.
So
that's
it's just
warm up.
Like,
that's the warm up.
That's where our warm up's a little bit different. For example, our warm up yesterday was dumbbell squats, presses. We only use the empty bar as part of the warm up. So they have to do 25 reps.
That's tough.
And then we did full range plate raises where they hold the plate and they get their upper back into it.
Yeah.
And they only do it 3 times through as part of the warm up, every minute on the minute. And the goal is to make our warm ups very difficult. We want the average person that comes in here and tries our warm up will get floored. And that's the goal eventually. And then our training, I'll give you an example of what we did yesterday. We bench press. That's our main lift. We do 1 main lift a day. And in between every single bench set, they have to do a set of dumbbell squats and a set of dumbbell straight leg deadlifts. So 1 set of bench, go over here, dumbbell squat, dumbbell straight leg deadlift, come back to the bench. They just work in groups of 3 and 4. And they have every set is mapped out on the bench. On the dumbbell squats, it's 10 and straight leg deadlifts. You have to push the sets. You don't have to kill yourself, but they have to be hard sets. Like on bench days, I want their legs tired. On squat and deadlift days, when those sets are done, they're not done like, to bodybuilder-ish, they're done for power.
Sure.
And on those days, the days that they squat and deadlift, they smoke their upper body with some kind of press and some kind of pull. It just varies on what we're doing. And so, I always, for football, we bodybuild the upper.
Yep.
And athlete the lower. So everything's done explosively for power on the bottom. Then everything here is just building armor. We want to look good off the bus. That's our goal. Dude, I don't care how we play, as long as we look good coming off the bus.
That is, you were talking about the article on buy-in, and you write great articles. There's like your articles, you read them and then you could put them to use and they make sense. But you were talking about the buy-in article. And I remember when I got to the high school, I think I had called you when I was going through the interview process, and you were kind of mapping out how I could start getting these kids to train. So my first 2 weeks, I didn't have teams organized to train with me, but I watched them train on their own, and they were like doing shitty benches and a lot of curls. So what it just said to me was, if I want these kids to be in it, I got to make sure I'm pumping up their chest and arms. Yeah. And so we do, like you always, even what you said, I've heard you, when you squat, then they go and do like an incline dumbbell bench and a chest supported row. So they're moving. That's not, people are still not, they think, oh, if you're doing that, then you can't squat heavy, but that's how you get people in shape.
Yeah, the key was, I mean, the overall arching thing is obviously we want them to be better athletes. But at the high school level, these kids have no muscle mass.
No.
And if you want the kids to get stronger at this level, you have to put muscle mass on them. So we push that's our main concern for especially our upper body. The reason why we don't do it for the lower body is because we do so much running and jumping. You can't do sets of 10 to 20 on the squat and expect them to do anything
Right.
With that. And, but basically every day we lift, we do something for the lower body, something for the upper body push, and something for the upper body pull. Now there's a lot of variations with there. Sometimes our pull is curls. So it's, and the other thing is we don't vary the exercises a whole bunch. We will a little bit, but we always keep the core lifts in besides bench, squat, and deadlift. We always do dumbbell inclines at some point. We always press, we always row, and we always curl. Now within there, we may change it up. So my whole goal in the off season is to prepare the guys for our in-season training, because in-season training to me is much more important than off-season in a way. The reason being is, and I ask the kids, do you want to be strong in August or you want to be strong at the end of October? When does it mean the most?
No doubt.
And the kids are like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. So I keep the main lifts in all the time and the main assistance in. So when we go to the in-season, the kids, one, know how to do them. Two, don't get sore.
Yes.
Because the body's adapted to them. That's the exact opposite of what you've been told, right? You got to vary. You need to change things up. I'm like, well, that's great for the average dude in the weight room. But for an athlete, let's say if I'm not in the weight room, maybe a kid has to train, on the paper it says, one arm dumbbell snatch on a BOSU ball and they've never done it. Well, how the fuck are they supposed to interpret that?
Yeah.
They see dumbbell incline, they know exactly how to put the dumbbell, what they're expected technique wise. And I got that from a rugby coach, and I wish I would have saved the article, but he did the same thing. It's because, he said a lot of times I won't be able to travel with the team. It was, or maybe the guys are taking 6 weeks off.
Right.
When they get their workouts, they have to know what each lift is. That's, he's like, that's part of being a coach. Not everything is ideal. It's the reality of the situation. And then his second thing was, like I said, the guys don't get sore. And so we can continue to push the movements on the in-season. And for the most part, unless there's an injury, the kids will get stronger during the in-season. That's the goal. And at the end of the season, I want those kids, when they're playing in the playoffs or in the last game of the season, I want them feeling like they can rule the world, instead of what usually happens. They're fit 5 or 10 pounds lighter. Their arms are all small. They don't have any pop off the ball, stuff like that.
That kills their confidence.
And the other thing is, we changed our practice schedule to make sure that the kids are training and the kids are fresh. So
do they lift before practice?
They usually lift before practice.
Yep.
And during the in-season, they'll have it'll be their gym period. So I'll go in there during the gym period. We have, I think, 3 groups generally, like a morning and then 2 kind of afternoon groups. So I'll just show up and I'll take them through. And it's very, we only do 1 lift. So we cut out the squat, for example, and we lift 2 main days a week.
I remember hearing you say that. So there's no in season, you're not back squatting?
No, because I got that from Buddy Morris. It's just too much hamstring. So we trap bar on Monday, and we do 2 assistance movements that day. And then on Wednesday, we bench press, and we do 2 assistance movements that day. We don't do a lot of volume, obviously. On the deadlift, for the most part, we just do a max set of 5, whatever's on their sheet. And it's usually not very hard, enough to keep it up, because I've learned the trap bar deadlift is the one lift you can do very light compared to your max and still make progress on. So we had kids had a training max, what their numbers are based on, like 75, 80%, and they get stronger during the season, which is crazy. So if you're a 500-pound deadlifter, for example, your heavy set might be 305, but we can still make, it's crazy. So you want to, the old saying, you want to do the least amount possible to get the biggest result in sports. Yeah.
I just reposted an old audio interview that I did with you in like 2006. And it reminded me you had just created 531, but you didn't call it 531. You called it lifting 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And so I used to call you all the time when you were at Elite, and you're like, Zach, I just mapped out my entire year of my own workouts. And I remember you were like, I'm not killing myself, and I just keep getting stronger. Yep.
Dude, it was after like 3 months, I tested my deadlift, so to speak. And I don't think I pulled over like 465, and I pulled 615 for 5 or something like retarded. And I was like, what the hell? Like, how is this possible? And then of course I made the mistake everyone did. Well, I just got to increase my training max. And like that was, you end up screwing yourself up. But it was a huge kind of mind fuck in a way. It really was. It kind of shattered a lot of things that I had learned before, or had read before.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't work hard. I mean, that's not what it is. It's we don't. I want, and I've had this happen many times. You know, we come on a Monday and I'll do some kind of experiment, and it's the training's so hard that Wednesday comes around, they can't do anything.
That's right. They're
So
like,
now I've screwed Wednesday. So now I've screwed almost the whole week.
And it gets, you hear people saying, oh, we're going to do the high-low method.
Yeah.
What if you're just training like solid quality workouts? You don't kill yourself. Then I don't need to constantly do this up and down, up and down.
Yep.
And, you know, what about when it just hit me when you were training the kids out of the garage, I remember you were a college strength coach. Were you in Kentucky or?
Yeah, University of Kentucky. Yeah.
And then you were powerlifting, but you rented a storage space, and you had like, yeah,
we had one of my good friends who I met through powerlifting rented a one-car garage, and that's what we trained out of. So, you know, I trained at Kentucky, or I worked out of there, and we used to lift there too, which was fine. Except, you know, you're there for 12, 14 hours a day. I don't want to spend any more time there. And so we just had like a private facility, and we had like a bench in there. We had a rack.
Glute hammeries, I think you said that you'd
pull
it out.
And like a reverse hyper. But if you wanted to use a lot of the equipment, you had to pull something out,
right?
Because there wasn't enough room. And we just deadlifted on the mats. There wasn't a platform. And man, we had I think 4 guys there. And it was just an awesome time. I mean, it was, as you know, I didn't have a pot to piss in, but I also had no worries.
Yeah.
You know, not like I have today. You know,
right? Yeah.
My worries were still worries, but you know, nothing like you know how that is when all of a sudden you've got mouths to feed, and the IRS breathing down your neck.
changes everything. What how's the like the kids are in school every day, or they go every other day at that high school? Like what's going on
Right
here
now,
in New Jersey?
I think it's hybrid learning. So they're at school 2 days a week, and then they have computer.
One day of full. That's pretty similar to out here. So what about kids, Jim? Let's say it's today's Thursday, but I'm virtually learning at home.
Yeah.
My parents are at work. I can't get a ride. Is that going on? Like they can't get a ride to the weight room?
But we have a system kind of set up where the seniors will, if anyone needs anything, there's like a big, like text or email chain.
Yep.
So everyone takes care of everyone. It's very much like you hear all the time that, we're a family. Well, when the shit hits the fan, are you really a family? So now it's set up where, the head coach monitors it all, but he puts it on the seniors. It's like, listen, this is your fucking team. Take care of this shit. Get them over here. Yeah. Like you pick them up, you leave early, and then he gets mad at the young kids. Like, why didn't you say something? You should, so there's a massive amount of responsibility put on the kids. And it has worked very well. Now, a lot of it has to do with, I think, our culture here. And when you live in a small town, things are a little bit different. Things are a little more family oriented.
Yep.
And with the success that we've had, there's more of a buy-in from the parents than there would have been if it was just a regular school. And we don't expect the kids to be at the school 5 hours a day.
How long's
training and
a
everything's going to
how
take
long's a
90
workout?
minutes.
How long's a
Most of them take an hour
Mhm.
with everything, hour and 15 if we're running and doing all that stuff. That's it.
What do you talk to the kids about with regards to, nutrition, but also like life stuff? You and I, as we've in our early younger
Yeah.
years of talking, you and I always spoke about training. Now it's like we got older and we talk to the kids about life stuff. So what's your
There's always going to be something that pops up in my head while we're training.
Yeah.
Yesterday, for example, is you have to be your own leader. And that's something I think I did when I was a kid, but I didn't really understand what I was doing. And being your own leader means, and I always tell them, you don't have to have followers to be a leader. So you don't have to be like, some crazy cult leader and have all these people behind you. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself. So you be the leader that you need yourself to be. That doesn't mean that you don't look to other people for like seniors and some of the kids who have a lot of experience for help. But you're the one that has to get up early. You're the one that has to have the great attitude. You're the one that has to confront problems and responsibilities on your own. And, I always talk about it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility.
That's
And
a
as
good
an
one.
example, one thing that I used was when I got in a motorcycle accident, it was not my fault, right? Some guy texted and driving, hits me, and I go flying. However, all the rehab and all that other stuff is on me. It's not up to him. So that was not my fault, but my health and my rehabilitation and all that stuff that went after it is my responsibility. So, you might have, because you're in a high school, there's a lot of differing social classes, and some kids have great parents and some kids have horrible parents. I get it. I feel for them because this is a time when you need parents. I mean, not like you never need parents, but when you're at this age, and I said, listen, it's not your fault, man. You guys are in a shitty situation, some of you, but it's your responsibility to come here with great work ethic, great attitude. That's up to you. And, I think I can't remember what David Coggins was like, don't look for, the best vengeance is success. Kill them with your success. So, but there's always little stuff that pops up. I talk about in the off season, like we're a team, but I said, man, that guy in that rack right there you guys are fighting for the same job. So just fucking outwork him, get angry at him. It doesn't mean you go fight him, but
Right.
use that as fuel.
Yeah.
Because, all bets are off when you're training. I mean, it's great to encourage and spot and stuff like that, but when you're under the bar, it has to be you. And so that's just one of the many things. It really comes down to responsibility, attitude, effort and discipline and stuff like that. And, the one thing in high school more than any other time in your life is you can be the slow, bad athlete and still have great success if you work. That doesn't mean you're going to be All-American or All-State, but it means you can set yourself up to have great success. And again, your success might be different than my success or this guy's success, but when you get to the college, I'm just talking football, there's a little bit for that, but the cream of the crop's always going to rise, and the talent's always going to be huge. But this is a time where even, let's say, for example, you're just a bunch of slow, dorky kids. You may only win without training two games. I'm just making this up. And let's say, you're still slow, but you got faster, a little bit faster, and you got a little bit stronger, and you became more disciplined about what you're doing. You can win 5-6 games. And it's like, it may not look great on paper, but they know, like, holy shit, look what we accomplished. So.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I always talk about, you got to win the battle before you win the war. Meaning, when I played football, I never cared about winning or losing, which I know is like the worst thing in the world. I just cared about what I did on each play. That's my little battle.
What was your position?
In college, I played fullback.
Yep.
And in high school, I was a tailback. So all I worried about was I'm going to win this play. And just what I tell the kids, during the game, if you just win your battles, every play is a different battle. If everyone takes care of themselves and wins their battle, the score will take care of itself. Okay. Now, sometimes we lose, and that's all right, because you know what? You won the battles. That's fine.
Yeah.
They were just better than us. In the weight room, each thing that you do, each set, each rep is your own little battle. Just worry about that. Worry about winning that battle. Don't worry about what you got to do afterwards or your next set of squats or this or that. Just be in the moment and take care of business right now.
There's a book called The Score Takes Care of Itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got it somewhere. It was gifted to me. It was Tom Coughlin. Where did he coach for? He was an NFL coach.
Jaguars. Yeah, he was at the Jaguars and he was with the Giants too.
Yeah. Oh no, that book's called Earn the Right to Win. There's another one. The Score Takes Care of Itself. They said that the great UCLA coach John Wooden said that. Yeah. He said winning is like an internal game. He goes, if you might win points on the board, but if you didn't put out your best effort, you didn't really win. Yeah. So that's also a tough, it takes time for kids to grasp that. I think the big thing, guys like us teach these kids is work ethic and just consistency and showing up. I mean, you were mentioning what progress can happen. We have a kid, he came back because of college break, but he's going back to school this week. But, he started in 7th grade around 85 pounds, and then he graduated high school at 185. So he gained 20 pounds a year.
Yes.
185 pounds. And it's like, damn, dude, that's crazy. And so, but kids see him in the gym and they're like, oh, he's killing it. I'm like, let me tell you something. He was weaker and smaller. Like, you're better than him and he started, before you. He could bench the bar for 3 reps. Yep. So kids don't kind of realize, as some people where they started from, with the work. Louis always said kids don't have heroes. I think guys like us, we got to see Herschel Walker. I think you cherished what you learned about those guys because you couldn't learn about it easily.
Yeah.
You had to research it.
Yeah. Was the more that I do this, you have to have some kind of belief in what you're doing or it just doesn't work. I always say to people, ask me what program is the best. I'm like, well, which one do you really want to do? Because that's the one that's probably going to work. But other than that, you have to have some kind of consistency because, you could do the super Soviet squat program, but if you only do it once every 2 months, it's not going to work. And the thing that I think we do a good job is we only take like 1 week off a year. And again, the reason why we can do this is because our training is like this. It's not
craziness, like, right?
The kids know like it's going to be challenging, but it's not going to just ruin their lives. Like they're not going to go home and suck on a rubber nipple with, in a fetal position for the next.
You're not going to be useless when you're done. You're going to be able to move.
No, sometimes, I always tell them we're always going to do something stupid occasionally. I want them to be challenged a little bit. Like we do a lot of Prowler work on Fridays.
How many Prowlers you guys, and where do you put them outside? Cause I see your weight room. It's a weight room. I don't see turf or anything in there.
We do we have the Prowlers. We do them on the football field not on the field, but around the edges because we have a artificial turf. And that if you push it on the field, it just tears that thing up.
Sure.
So we just do it around the football. We have, we push it 20 yards at a time. We just go around. And I've done a good job. Like the goal is to I don't want the kids to throw up. That's like I just think that's the wrong thing. Now that doesn't mean no one throws up because there's always some kid who has like 14 bowls of Captain Crunch.
Oh, dude, kids eat some stupid shit. One kid told me the other day he ate 25 chicken nuggets. Then I go, what was lunch the other day? He's like, I can't remember. I go, I know you're in 7th grade, but do you smoke pot on your way here? You don't know what you ate like less than a day ago? So then he's like, hot dogs. I was like, dude, you eat like a redneck. Like I never heard. So have you given the kids some basic nutrition guidelines, Jim?
Yeah, and that becomes a little worrisome for me because a lot of the kids don't have any money.
Yeah. So what do you say?
So the number one rule, and I addressed this at a conference one time and people looked at me strange. And I said, you're just not living in reality. The number one rule is you got to eat something.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, as long as you, in an imperfect, it's imperfect world, at the very least, eat 3 meals a day. I don't care what they're in, but if it's better than not eating anything. And so that's rule number one. Rule number two is wake up early and have a good breakfast. So as long as it's like a step system.
Sure.
I don't care what you eat at breakfast. Like, it doesn't have to be traditional breakfast food, but it has to be some kind of protein and some kind of carbs. So I said, listen, the easiest thing to do is have your parents buy hamburger patties, have them cooked up, and just eat 2 hamburger patties and some toast or something, or egg. And a lot of kids don't like eggs, and they can only eat like 1 or 2 eggs, and that's what 12 grams of protein. That's
I don't like eggs.
Yeah. So I tell them, like, it's got to be some kind of protein and some kind of carb. The hamburger patties, everyone can kind of stomach because they're used to eating hamburgers. I don't want them to eat with the bun, but just that, and eat some kind of carb. I don't care what it is. And then then it becomes, how we set up our breakfast. Let's set up almost every meal like that. So some kind of protein. And what ended up happening, we had some kids who really bought in. So they would bring containers of rice and beef.
Yeah.
So they'd bring it, they'd have 2 of those containers throughout the day.
Perfect.
Obviously they'd have breakfast too, and then they'd have something for dinner. So when those kids started doing that, then everyone started doing it. Like, wow, the cool kids, the peer pressure is great in a good way. But and then they started, I talked to them a little bit about how, like, for example, rice is the easiest carbohydrate on your stomach. You don't get all bloated. You don't feel like crap. It's easy to measure.
Yep.
Potatoes are great, and pasta, for some people is fine, but rice is so easy. It's so cheap, and you can make a big thing of it and just scoop a couple things in your Tupperware, cut up some hamburger patties. It's a really cheap version of like the vertical diet in a way.
John Welborn, I know he's interviewed you. He said that's how he ate in high school: burgers and rice. His mom was constantly making.
It's terrific for your stomach, and you get some fats in there. And then obviously you have some parents who are really bought in, and then they'll really start, doing some of the, make sure their dinner is all salad and stuff. And I don't want the kids not to live like bodybuilders either. I mean, I want them to have pizza, because the bottom line is, when I was growing up, diet wasn't really a thing. You just ate food, and because most of the time the food was homemade, or, if you went out because I grew up in Chicago, so everyone was eating pizza. But man, we were also playing like 30 sports and running all day. So you can get away with it a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it's the socioeconomic thing with diet is really tough. And then the parents have to be all in. And if your parents aren't involved with sports or had never been involved with sports, it's hard for them to say, what, you need 50 hamburger patties a week.
I've oftentimes said that, is like, if your parents didn't play sport at a high level or even in high school, that stuff's going to be kind of foreign to them. And you know what you mentioned too, Jim, which is a little strange for this year, is like last year, after 4 months of training, like our kids were like stretching through their t-shirts, and I was like, dude, it's happening.
Yeah.
And so you don't have those kids. School is not full. So now the younger kids don't see those kids walking the hallways and saying, damn, if I put in the work, that's what I'm going to look like. So this year, man, has been,
it's been a challenge, but I think the most important thing I learned about my community this year was the commitment to keeping everything tight. So, for example, when we had the kids training here, we had, people got mad, obviously, because you're basically going to die, right? Everyone was going to die. Remember that?
The end of the world is coming.
Yeah.
Dude, people did not want you anywhere near them.
And, but, for the most part, everyone's like, I didn't see anything. Cops would, because there's a ton of police officers that live by. They'd honk their horn. Hell yeah, keep training. Yeah, and
Some were the opposite. That must have been pretty stressful on you because you would see stuff like gym owners were training people out of their driveway and their own neighbor would call the cops on them. And it's like, dude, when your own
Yeah.
neighbor throws you under the bus, that sucks.
But there wasn't any, I mean, maybe no one, here's the thing, Zach, because no one came up to me personally.
Of course
So it's weird. And then, when you got all these, we had a couple kids who were close to 275, 290 over here, 6'3". Like, what are they going to say to these kids? Like,
Yep.
You can't do it. It's like, what'd you say?
Right. Did
Nothing.
Did anybody call the cops to complain?
Yeah. But, again, we have a very small community and there's a lot of people, the higher up, so to speak, who were like, too fucking bad.
Yeah.
They're doing, and obviously we were in the right, as far as I'm concerned. And so we had enough people looking out for us. The one thing, like you brought up, the kids aren't seeing the older kids because we had to do smaller groups. The younger kids didn't get to see the older kids work. And our older kids work like fucking machines.
Yes.
And the younger kids don't quite understand what work is. And I think that was the big drawback. Because eventually we moved all the training into, you want to talk about an awesome community. We had a parent who had a barn on their property. They cleared out the barn. They put 4 racks in there.
Damn.
And we trained kids out of there, but we had to do 3 different.
What'd you do? Move the racks from the high school to their barn?
They had 1 rack in there, and then we moved the kids all moved some racks and dumbbells from the gym.
How big was the barn? How many, like?
It was enough for 4 racks, but it was tight.
Yeah,
It was
probably
tight.
1,500 square feet, maybe.
No. It was
1,000?
not even close to that. Like, it was when someone was benching in 1 rack, like you had you had to be like a ballerina a lot of times.
Yeah, I got you.
But because we had smaller groups, that we divide, we wanted the older kids with the older kids because I want them to have fun too.
100%.
I don't want them stuck with that's one of the things that you trade off. It's like, I also want the kids to have fun and be with their friends because they never got to see them anyway.
And it's
I don't want to stick some senior with some fucking turd freshman.
You remember that shit forever. You remember those. They're going to be 50 something years old talking about those workouts in the barn, just preparing for the gridiron.
Like some of our Prowler workouts here were so horrendously awful. And the kids loved it. And they still talk about it this day. Like, there was 2 kids that were laying on the ground, facing each other, puking. So they're just piling the puke.
You used to do those, Jim, back, you went through this phase.
About that now.
I remember went through this phase of like, you were losing weight, and you were testing yourself on the Prowler. And I think one day we were either on the phone or a text. You had done like 30 trips of the Prowler up and down your street.
34.
32.
My 34th birthday. Oh,
that's what it was.
Oh, God.
The birthday.
And the worst thing is I had a piece of paper with check marks on there to keep check. And so I get done with like 10 and you still got 24 more to go. It was the most disheartening thing. It's like, I'm so tired, but look at all this I still have to do.
33% of the way there. Once you get to halfway, there's like a light at the end of the year. You're seeing the light. So I remember you pushing yourself through those brutal conditioning workouts. So now you guys are fully in the high school weight room?
Yeah. What was, talking about our community, what was awesome was when they wanted more lockdowns. I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago, and a whole bunch of people went over to the health department's building and said, "No, this ain't happening, buddy." And so they reversed everything and they said, "Well, what about the schools?" And they said, "We want 2 things. We want our lifting always." The parents petitioned for the lifting, said, "We're having our lifting groups and we're making sure sports are full on."
Dude, that's great.
It was like, I was like, wow, we made that big of an impact because Juliet runs all the junior high training here.
That must have, with your wife prepping middle school to go to you, must make it's, because I did that as a middle school wrestling coach. So it's like when they show up, they're so far ahead of the curve.
What happened was once we had, I think it was after our second year of off-season training, we made the playoffs for the first time in like 20 years. The first year I was here, or first year of the off season. The second year we won like 4 playoff games. We just basically missed we lost to the eventual state champion. So all of a sudden the junior high parents were like, well, can we send our kids? I'm like, yeah, sure, bring your kids over. And then it got to be 15, 20 kids. And you know what it's like to coach junior high kids. You can't turn your back on them for a second. It is chaos. And so what ended up happening was I couldn't spend any time with the kids who are going to play.
Yeah.
I have to go look at a kid who's deadlifting 4 pounds because somehow he's going to get hurt. So you know how that goes. Like, how did you just get hurt? It's impossible.
Kids get hurt sleeping. I'm like, how did you get hurt? They're like, I don't know. It happened in my sleep. I'm like, let me tell you something. Don't ever tell anybody you got injured sleeping.
So you got in a fight. He's like, Chuck Liddell, he came to my house the other day.
I got injured in my sleep.
But so what ended up happening was, like, I told the head coach, I'm like, dude, are the kids who started with me, at a young age, and as freshmen, who believed in me when no one else believed in me, they're going to be playing this season. And I said, they're not getting any attention from me. They're getting screwed. And then I would come home, and of course I'm just bitching the whole time. And so we had thought about, well, maybe we can hire someone to help out. And then we started thinking, well, who are we going to hire? And are they just going to do it for their own selfish interests? Like maybe they can promote their business. And then finally Juliet's like, fucking, I'll do it. So originally she had maybe 10 kids or something like that. And then it was just 8th graders. And then all the 7th graders want to come by. And then we have kids from like the 6th grade, like, hey, can we start? And it's like, we'd love to, but there's only one coach up there. And it is just nuts. So, but she's done an amazing job, because it really comes down to, we need to get the kids understanding the movement and also we want the kids in shape. And this as well as I do. She's like, I'm not a strength coach. I'm a remedial PE teacher.
No, I know your wife was coaching before I actually got into.
Yeah.
She was a full-time coach before I was really doing it full-time. So she's just modest like you are. But you're so right, Jim. Dude,
we have to teach them how to body weight squat. Most of the kids can't do push-ups.
But that changes everything, because when they show up in high school, it's like, hey guys, you've been squatting with a dumbbell and a kettlebell. Now, instead of it here, we're putting it on your back, and there's some little tweaks. You're squeezing your back and whatnot, but the learning curve is infinitely better. So, for people out there listening, especially parents, my son is 12. He comes to the gym. I don't really tell him what to do. I make him do the warm up with the kids. And then I let him jump in with the kids, and the kids start saying, E-guy, come do this with me. Come do that. If it's me, then it's, not that he won't listen to me. But I let the kids kind of coach him.
And, well, you're a dad. I ran into that same thing with my oldest son.
Right.
I didn't want to be a coach. I wanted to be his dad.
That's right.
So I just, I always said, listen, if you want to do something, I'll help you out. And so, I guess it started a little bit before, maybe right when kind of COVID started. He's like, I really want to train. And he had a place to train.
Is he a freshman or sophomore?
No, he's gonna be a senior.
Oh my God. Dude, he was a baby when you and I hung out at the 2007 WPO.
Yeah, he was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, Mason is not like a gung-ho lifter. And I don't care that he is. He loves football. He loves playing football. I just told him, like, listen, if you look, no matter what sport you're playing, but especially quarterback, you have to be willing. You're taking horrible hits. You're back there in the pocket. You're not bracing. Like, you have to be almost stronger than the other guys, and you have to be physically fit, all that shit. He's like, fine, just tell me what to do. So we just Zoom call. He sets up his camera, and I have all his, I got his workout sheet right here.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do a lot of work. We do bench, squat, and deadlift. We do some assistance work.
Where's he training? Out of his house?
No, he's his mom coaches at like a big volleyball center, and they have a huge weight room in there.
Nice.
So he just goes in there, and it's like you need. I just tell him what he puts on the bar. You need 2 blues, a 10, 5, and a 2.5. All right, just puts. He doesn't care about all that stuff, and I don't care that he doesn't care. Because I don't want to coach me. I fucking hate me. I hate having to coach me.
I know, it's interesting.
But
We
the bottom
become
line is,
dads. Yeah, I feel you.
The amount of success he's had is insane, especially when you consider none of his workouts were like what you and I were doing as teenagers. Like, I'm going to do 315 for 2 hours today.
I say all the time. I think that stuff destroyed my body.
Yeah, I know. But he just, whatever, he never does anything maximal. All his sets are solid. I make sure his technique is as good as it can be. And all of a sudden, he gained like 17 or 18 pounds. He's just, and then when I go out to see him play, he's on the sideline, and I only, I see him on camera. His thighs and his upper back are so massive compared to everyone else. And it's like, holy shit, like, because you know how it is. If you see someone every single day or every other day, the changes aren't apparent. And so when he comes here, like I fly him out here all the time. He gets off the plane, and he's not, Schwarzenegger or anything, but all of a sudden his shoulders are here, he's walking, and it's like, holy shit, look what just being consistent is. We just progressively got him a little stronger.
Yep. The confidence must go through the roof for that's,
that's
like what
all of a sudden you can run the quarterback, dive, and
you feel confident. I remember what you said earlier, though. You said like in season, if you're not lifting, you notice your arms shrinking.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, not this year, the previous year at the wrestling state tournament, a kid was like, I got to get back to you, Zach. Look at these skinny arms. Because they're in a singlet all the time.
Yeah.
They see themselves shrinking, and that fucks with your head. Fucks with your head.
One of the reasons why, the real reason why I took a different approach, when I heard Boyd Epley, Boyd Epley, right?
Sure, Nebraska guy.
I got to ride up an elevator out with him at a conference one time. I was like, oh, it was like I was standing next to like fucking, Jimi Hendrix or something.
Yes.
He's got the most perfect hair. It's amazing. But he did a seminar at like a Hammer Strength or one of those kind of.
I watched it.
Things. Yeah, it's Dr. Ken introduced him.
Yeah, I watched it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, and he said, "Well, what's your goal as a strength coach besides getting them better athletes?" And everyone's sitting on their hands because no one wants to be, give the wrong answer. And he said, "Your goal is to put muscle on them. A bigger muscle is a stronger muscle, is a faster, is a quicker muscle. So at this, for a power sport, that's your goal. Miraculously, when you do that, everything kind of works itself out, provided you're doing the other stuff too. It's not just bodybuilding."
Right.
So I was like, holy shit, I look at our kids and it's like, some kids are so skinny, or they're skinny fat, or they're just fat or overweight in some way. It's like, listen, we're just going to worry about getting you in good general GPP shape. Just, learn how to do jumping jacks and burpees and mountain climbers and how to run stadium steps and how to push a prowler. That's fine. But we just need to put muscle mass on you. And once I kind of narrowed everything down to like, this is my goal, for the upper body and even the lower body to an extent. But anyway, it just made more sense to me. And, the other thing that we talked about this earlier, being consistent allows you to not make dumb decisions, like, oh shit, I gotta get these kids in shape. The kids are already in shape. They're fine. You don't need to, I see it all the time. Kids will be like, I gotta get ready for 2-a-days. So by the time they get to 2-a-days, they're already exhausted. And then 2-a-days is going to ruin them.
If you're always ready, you don't got to get ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that sometimes with these, in wrestling, it's happened and UFC, like a guy gets a call like 3 days out. And he's like, yeah, I'm training. I'll fight.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. Other guys, some of the boxers were notorious for like gaining like 40 pounds and just go, I think extremes.
There's the problem with, though, I will say this, the problem with always being ready is people think that you have to train like a madman to always be ready. And you can't do that because then you're always tired, you're always underfed, you're always underweight, stuff like that. The key is you just have to be so insanely consistent that you can train at such a low level. So not low, but you understand what I'm saying.
You're not killing
Right.
yourself. You're just doing the work.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that has a lot to do, like I see like Donald Cerrone, he's always in good shape, but I'm sure his workouts aren't, I mean, they're probably tough. Like you and I aren't going to do the workouts, but overall, they're probably not the most death-defying, things. And I still think there's a place, I'm not going to say getting out of shape at all, but you kind of have to remove, like, instead of spending, if you spend an hour in there and then you go do something else, you go hike a canyon or you go play in a band, like you still need to get your mind out of there sometimes. I think
What
it's
do
just
you
good for the
train
soul.
in? Jim, I think I've been, reading your blog. You're doing a lot of the weight vest, body weight
Yeah.
workouts. What are you doing? Any free weights? Are you still deadlifting?
No, everything I do is weight vest oriented and conditioning oriented. And so I call it walrus training.
Yeah, I
It's
saw
the
that.
fat, gross cousin of the Navy SEAL. That's how I came up with
That shit
I
is
call
so
them
funny.
suburban commandos.
Yeah.
I'm able to mow any lawn.
Is deadlifting too tough on your back now after surgery and all
Yeah,
that?
there's I hurt my back and then I had surgery and everything was fine. And then I re-injured it doing something like I couldn't even tell you what it was. It just was like over time. And I've been trying to figure out, and I finally, because usually when I kind of tweak something, I always knew what to do.
Sure.
And this time around, nothing worked. Nothing. It was fucking frustrating beyond belief. And so after 6-7 months, it was finally like, okay, that's what I needed to do. And then miraculously, like 3 days later, my back's not 100%, but it's a million times better.
What do you use, a 40-pound weight vest for all these
I
workouts?
use a 25-pound weight vest. For the most part, I use 25. But if I have a challenge, I'll do something. I'll say, well, listen, I want to do X, Y, and Z with a weight vest or whatever weight vest. But most of my training is a 25-pound weight vest. I do a lot of Prowler work. I do a lot of airdyne work as far as my conditioning. Once my back feels better, I do jumping rope. I also wear a vest and walk up and down stadium stairs for like an hour.
Yes.
Taking every other step, dude, to fucking smoke your legs.
Dude,
and your lungs. I just put in my headphones like you're wearing headphones right now, dude. It's awesome. I'm in my own little world. No one.
I heard, you said you're listening to like comedy. I got into weight vest training from you, Jim, many years ago. You were telling me how you were mowing the lawn with, it was called the firefighter vest. That's an 88-pound vest. So I was like, I'll buy it. The vest was like $400.
Yeah. Dude, I wish I would have bought another one because X Vest is no longer in business.
All right. That 88, you know what? I can't remember what I did with that vest, but it lasted till forever. I think I gave it to one of the kids when I moved my gym. It was a little bit torn up, but that mowing the lawn with that thing almost killed me. It was so much on your trap. So my wife said, she's like, it's so embarrassing to see you out there. You have this big vest on, So then when we moved to this house, I mowed the lawn with ankle weights and I had a 40-pound vest.
Sled, dude.
I should have dragged the sled. She told me that was embarrassing. So I was like, I don't care, man. I'm getting strong. And I always kind of turn everything into a workout. And of course, you have Louie's voice in the back of your head, like, put on those ankle weights, traction at your back. He just say wild things. So people don't know that I randomly text you like a few times a year. Just like out of the blue, I go static overcome by dynamic, nothing else. I just leave it at that. And then I like pause. I go, oh, I could hear Jim laughing right now when he reads that.
Speed, strength, or strength, speed. You decide.
I know. And so people
know what's funny? I got the weight vest mowing the lawn thing from Tom Mislinski. He's like,
oh, really?
And Mislinski, he played in the NFL for 10 or 12 years. And he doesn't live in the poorest of neighborhoods, so he must have looked like just a fucking beast. He's like, I don't care. And then so as part of my back rehab, I started off with like a 10-pound vest. I would just walk like a half mile. And then it just got to the point where I'd do like 5 miles. And I would just wear a 25-pound vest. It got to the point where I would do that like 6 days a week. So I'd lift twice a day, twice a week, twice a day. But I got to be known as that guy, like, oh yeah, that's the dude with the beard and like the vest, thing on. Everyone in the city knew me because I'd just be trudging
Yeah.
along. Just and
What about hills? Are you running hills anymore, Jim? Or too tough on your back?
I will do the weight vest with the hill. I won't run. I'll just walk up and
Power
down
walk.
that thing.
I've
And
got to
it's brutal.
that the weight vest is I got to get my knee fixed again. Probably going to do it in the springtime. So I don't know if I'll ever be doing all that running stuff again, but I see myself moving towards what you're doing and walking with a vest. You remember in the 80s that one guy popularized speed walking with dumbbells.
Yeah, heavy hands.
Yeah, that's what it was called, right? Heavy hands.
Yeah, and you had to keep the key was you could see people doing it, but you got to keep it over your heart. That's what people got wrong.
I would see guys like power.
You have to kind of punch like this. It
I'm
looks
gonna look it up.
Like
I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna
Yeah,
bring that shit back. Then I'll write an ebook. Then I'll write an ebook about it, right? Jim, what has been your, I think one of the interviews, maybe with Mark, I'd heard how many copies you've sold of 531. What has been your personal favorite one and like to write and that you recommend to others?
Oh boy. I mean, I think you need to have like either the one that probably means the most to me was the first one, because when I wrote it, in fact, it was like you and Smitty that told me, like, dude, I'm telling you, go do something, like people will buy it. And I'm like, I don't know. And then when that book came out and I got made more money that month. I got paid for the first 3 weeks of that because it came out like in March 10th.
Right.
So everything at EFS at the time was paid by the month for like vendors. I made more money in the 3 weeks than I did the entire year.
Damn.
And
I was why do people get so drawn to it? You think people were tired of complicated
stuff? No, I really think that what happened was, from 2001 until when the book came out in 2010, so 9 years approximately, I was on the EFS Q&A website and I did all that stuff. I worked at EFS, but I never got paid for the Q&As. And I think Dave and I one time did an average in 1 year. It ended up being like 400 questions, 400 or 500 questions on the Q&A, and then like an extra couple hundred emails and then phone calls. Almost like 1,000 questions a month I answered. And I did that I just love to do it. I love training more than anything. I really do. I love it. And I love being part of it. And I didn't have a grand plan, Zach. I have no plans. I'm like the guy who just does the battles. Like, listen, today I have to do this, this, and this. And I know in the end, something will work out as long as I keep my heart into it and I keep on giving great effort. Okay. Right. It's like if instead of trying to lose weight, just run hills every day and fucking do dips and chin-ups. Like magically something good is going to happen. So I think what really happened was I had built up so much credibility and like goodwill. I gave myself freely. I answer questions all the time for free. You can get hold of me, all this other stuff. And it was just like all this goodwill, I think, in a way. Now, people obviously trusted me because I thought I did a good job. And I was also very personable, and just dry answer stuff. Like, I try to put some personality because we had fun. Dave and I had a blast on there. We would be laughing so much. He'd call me up when I was living in Kentucky. He's like, dude, look at my answer. You got to see this shit. And I think it was, I developed such a big base of people that, liked me or at least trusted me. And I did that all organically. I never had a grand plan ever. And Dave will tell you, like, there's no one worse at business than me. I just kind of do what I do and, hopefully things work out. And,
well, dude, that video you recommended of Dick Dale, you first told me about it when we were in North Carolina, which I think was 2013, maybe 2014. It was a while ago, dude.
That video
is the best.
Way older than that.
I know, and I love it.
And Dick Dale, I think, has passed away, but that changed a lot of things for me.
I love that video. I go back to it often.
Yeah, and it was, if people that don't understand what we're talking about, there's a great surf guitarist named Dick Dale. If you ever heard the opening kind of song of Pulp Fiction,
it's that guitar.
He's a famous surf guitarist. Well, he did a video. Someone after one of his shows went up to him and said, was recording the video, like, what advice would you give young musicians? and it's the best business advice I ever heard.
I loved it.
Especially for people in this industry.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away because here's a guy with all this, like he's Dick Dale. Like even when I was a kid, I knew Dick Dale because my mom had some old records, and I knew who he was. And I'm like, holy cow, this guy's just fucking DIY. Like he's got that do-it-yourself spirit. Anyway, if you can look it up, I think it's just Dick Dale gives
business interview or something.
Yeah, and it's just out in the parking lot. It's not like a professionally done interview. And I was like, holy cow.
I think the guy's mind was blown who was interviewing him. He's like, wait, there's more. He's like, okay. He's like, all right, you want to tell it how it is? And there's you're right, is so applicable for guys. I always said, like, I keep these small gyms, small warehouse. I don't get crazy with too big 50 coaches, and then I'm making all this gross, but I have shit net. My gym is I do 3 hours a day, Fridays 2 hours, Saturdays 1 hour. It's 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's part-time.
Well, who did that very well was Joe DeFranco.
Joe, when I first went to him, was in the storage closet of a racket club.
He never expanded until he was about to die. So he never, he never, because when I was at EFS, people would always be like, what does Joe DeFranco have? Because we would outfit his gyms. I'm like, well, he has this thing. And I'm like, but that's not what he started out with. He had like a rack and a bench and like a glute ham raise and a
reverse hyper. He did have the belt squat.
Belt squat, yeah.
He had that all in that.
It was a gold gym.
It was a storage closet. No, it was like some sort of racket club.
Okay, it was like a normal place.
It was a big health club.
Yeah.
So when I went there the first time, I remember I'm like, where's the secretary? Where's the assistant? When you're on the other side in those early years and there was no social media, you didn't really know what you were walking
you thought it was
into.
Gonna be this grand thing. It's like, here we go.
We were in a storage closet, man. The thing, it was small. And then they would the health club had the weight room there, so they would grab dumbbells and kind of come into his. And now look, Joey went full circle. Joey D is now back to a small spot because he went when.
You went to Texas or something? Is that right?
I don't know what he did in Texas, but he had the small spot. Then we did the seminar together at his 2,500 square foot spot.
Yeah.
That was when it was you, Dave, myself, Joe. I don't know who else. Then he went to another bigger spot. And I think the big spot, I don't know exactly what happened, but I would assume he was like, man, this shit ain't me. Too much headache and too much hassle. And he went back to the small.
Yeah. And I'd rather say turn people away than have to beg people to come.
You don't ever want to do that.
What's funny about that seminar, the one at Joe D's place, the one that you're referencing, is we had set up his new racks and stuff like that. And we had a seminar, and we sent him a Prowler, and we didn't have it there. But I said, "Listen, dude, I'm telling you," because he loved the sled, the regular pulling sled. And I said, "Dude," because at the time it was like only me and Dave had used the Prowler before. We were, like, "Dude, I'm telling you, this thing's awesome." He's like, "Yeah." He's like. So we sent him one. It maybe got there on Monday or Tuesday. We weren't there. It was over a weekend that we were there where we had it sent to him. Like Thursday, he calls me up. And he's like, "Holy fuck, dude, this thing is awesome." He's like, because I didn't think you guys even, could beat the sled, but this thing, and it was just like, and he did such a great job with his kids, but that was such a massive promotion for this Prowler because there's one thing for me and Dave to use it, big job, big deal. But when some guy who's coaching, college, high school, and even professional athletes starts, talking about the Prowler. But I'll never forget that phone call. He's like, "Dude, what the fuck is going on?"
It was I had the original one, so it didn't have the removable skid plates. So I had a guy I knew, we'd wear them out. He would weld new ones on. He welded new legs onto that thing.
I had one of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. So thinking back, I also remember there was a kid at the seminar who was like decked out in like Chad Ike's like clothing. And, he looked like he didn't lift, but it was like the beginning of like lifting groupies, so to
Yeah,
speak, right?
yeah.
And I remember the
I know
kid,
exactly who you're talking about.
he asked like a wild question, and you're like, man, you're just getting too far off. You're getting too far
Yeah.
away from the work. How's your band going, Jim? Is that your band right there on the sweatshirt?
No, this is like Mayhem. They're a famous Norwegian black metal band.
How's your band doing?
We haven't even got together in a while because of he got a new job. He lives in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yep.
So for him to come here is, what is it, 2.5 hours or so trip.
Right.
I still talk to him all the time, and
Right.
I write stuff a lot. Like I always have songs, and then what ends up happening is, I haven't seen Joey in a couple of months. Well, it's like 6 months, maybe even more than that. And but it's crazy because I'm like, listen, this is something I wrote. This is what I'm hearing. What do you think? He's like, well, I'll do this. And then 20 minutes later, the whole song is done. We haven't lifted. We haven't played with each other in months. And
Yeah.
Juliet's like, how the hell do you guys do this? And, but Joey's a much better musician than I am, like way better. Like on the scale of 1 to 10, if he's 10, I'm like 0.5. but he understands what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, listen, I kind of hear it, and I just do like, that one part in that one Mayhem or Neurosis song where it's like, ba da do ba boo ba 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 ba. He's like, oh yeah, all right, I got it. And then all of a sudden he, so we have a great communication style, and plus we have like the same kind of vision. I just, I'm 45 years old, and it keeps me happy and young to do all that stuff. And when I was a kid, I played it when I was a kid. When I was high school, I played in a band. I played drums in a band. And so, one thing is like my parents always did. They always supported me in stuff outside of just sports, because obviously we're very sports oriented, because I think they knew I needed other things to do. And so if you're, I'm not saying you don't know this, but if you're the drummer, that's where everyone plays. Like it's easier to move the amp and the guitar than it is the entire drum set. So whoever's the drummer, that's where they practice. So, we're in our basement, and God knows the horrible noises that we created. It's some very patient parents, because basically you have 4 or 5 kids down there that don't know how to do anything. Just like, oh, that was a great song.
I know. And it's just so raw. There's a kid around the corner from me. His dad's a retired policeman. And so we live, Juliet will tell you, this beach area. There's a lot of guys, like on the weekends, they're in these bands, kind of they create their own like Dick Dale band, and they play at these little bars. And it's like, yeah, man, that's what that's their thing. Yeah. And so I hear the kid playing so the guy's son plays drums, and people will do block parties, and they'll pay the band. And it's like, it's so great to have this other outlet. And so for me, it's like, I go mountain biking with my son. We go fishing. My son is into all different, freshwater, saltwater. And that's important, I think.
Yes, it is.
We know some people where it's like, what do you like to do on your free time? I like to read about program design. And you're like, damn, dude, you need
to watch training videos on YouTube. It's like, well, that's great and everything. But even when I was, coming up and stuff, like in college, I had played drums in high school, and in college, I asked my dad, I said, will you co-sign a loan for me? Because I wanted to get a guitar and an amplifier. And I was like, $120 guitar and like a $150 amp. And it took me like 2 years to pay this thing off, because he's like, I'll co-sign, but you got to make the payments.
Yep.
And so I, just got a shitty amp and a shitty guitar. And then I just sat down, I just learned Black Sabbath songs. So I'm like, Black Sabbath is, basically Black Sabbath created every riff known to man. So if you can play Black Sabbath, you can play everything else. And
who was that? Was Zakk Wylde their guitarist or no? Or was
Zakk Wylde played with Ozzy.
Yeah.
It was Tony Iommi, so I just learned how to play Black Sabbath songs. And from there, I just learned how to play everything by ear, because I don't know I can't read music. Right. I can just read tabs, and obviously you can read tabs, but I learned how to tune, different tunings on the guitar, and it just kind of took off from there. And, but since I remember exactly, it was in 3rd grade, and my cousins introduced me to heavy metal. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but this is awesome. I mean, this is what I want.
What did you listen to? What was the first?
The first hard rock thing I really, besides like maybe hearing Led Zeppelin or something, was Blue Oyster Cult, and then it was they're like a rock. You ever hear the song "Don't Fear the Reaper"? You've heard that song.
Yeah, I know Blue Oyster Cult.
But they have some heavier rock stuff. And I really like them. And then, back in the day, there was no internet or anything, so you were basically at the whim of your brother or your friends' brothers.
Or MTV Headbangers Ball.
Yeah, but they didn't play anything. So what
They
ended
did
up happening,
Metallica and Megadeth, and
I had two friends whose brothers were deep in the underground. So by the time I was in 5th grade, I was like knee deep in Slayer and Venom and Celtic Frost, all this like underground stuff. I didn't know, because like, this is what everyone listens to.
Jim, there was, when I was in middle school, Seton Hall University had their own radio station, and it was called Pirate Radio. Now, it was all
Sundays,
all hard rock. I don't know if it was like a part-time thing. It may have been like weekends, but it was Pirate Radio because it's the Seton Hall Pirates. But as a kid, you're like, they're pirates, and they're playing like, they're playing underground stuff. And so that was the beginning of like, not the beginning, but they had Pantera and they had other bands. I actually did concert security for Pantera when I was 23, maybe 22, at this big place in Asbury Park called Convention Hall.
What year was this, do you think?
It would have been, I was a first-year teacher. I think it was 99.
Okay, so it was right at their final album.
It may have been December 98. It was wintertime, so it was the winter of 98, 99. And I can't remember who opened up for them. Whoever opened up for them was great. And then they played. The crowd was insane. And that place, Convention Hall, was great. Asbury Park has like a big history of music, just a lot of people have played in that area. So that was my first time. This guy had a team of guys, and he hired my buddy, and then he needed other guys. So we were like at the gate where people were constantly trying to charge the stage.
Yeah, it's nuts, man.
It was, people were making like human pyramids, like they were like piling up. It was like seeing how many people could pile up. I remember that, and like, I'm 45 like you, so that was half my lifetime ago. And I remember that stuff.
That's the Pantera was, the way that the music industry is today, there's just not going to be a big band like that anymore.
Right.
And that was kind of the last big metal band, I think. I mean, Metallica is still massive, but it's not the same. But yeah, I saw Pantera on right before their second album, right before Far Beyond Driven. They were in a 4-band bill. They played second, so they weren't even close to them. And it was fucking chaos. And I remember watching them, and I was like, holy cow, these guys can be massive. Because the crowd, like, they beat every other band. Megadeth was on the bill. They played after them, then Skid Row played. And a fun fact, I went to that show, and so everyone was there pretty much to see Pantera and Megadeth. And because it's a very different crowd than the Skid Row crowd.
Yeah, right? How the hell the Skid Row go?
So it was a big venue. There's probably, I don't know how many people were there, 15,000. And so we didn't stay for Skid Row, but as soon as Megadeth was done, me and my buddies were like, fuck Skid Row, fuck. And then the whole crowd, and I was like, dude, I started that shit. And it's like, what a dickhead thing to do. There's a band going out there trying to kick ass.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you don't know.
Snot-nosed 15, 16-year-old kid.
Yo, it's interesting, Jimmy, to see the bands that have still stuck together. It's kind of reminds you of like strength, equipment, and strength, just ideas. So I think Pearl Jam still creates albums independently.
Yeah, they did a great job of owning themselves.
Yeah. I'm not sure who else does it, or what's interesting is what music has songs that were from the 80s that continue to live on into this generation. And you're like, wow, man, that's...
Well, what's nuts is when we were kids, like high school kids, that was the grunge era, right? And so you had Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Nirvana.
You went from heavy metal to the grunge, or hard rock, heavy metal, grunge.
Grunge.
Early 90s.
If you listen like Soundgarden stuff,
Yes.
it was dark and fucking heavy. I mean, it's
The
funny because
guitar.
you imagine a time when let's see, what's that's like Them Bones by Alice in
Acid
Chains,
Chains.
or Spoon Man by Soundgarden, when that was the most popular thing. And it's everything is tuned low, it's heavy as fuck, you know, the lyrics are dark, and then compare that to popular music today. It doesn't even, and those were bands. They workshopped themselves for 10, 20, 12 years. They worked together, they developed their
Right.
sound. Now it's just kind of all
And then
manufactured.
what heartbreaking that, Chris Cornell, a lot
The
of those
only-
guys from grunge.
The only singer alive is Eddie Vedder.
Eddie
Stone
Vedder-
Temple Pilots, all those guys are dead.
Dude, the Stone Temple Pilots drummer lived in this town, or still does. So the Stone Temple
Yeah.
Pilots lead singer, he OD'd. I
Yeah.
had seen Stone Temple Pilots in it was the summer of '93 in New York City at Roseland Gardens. They came out dressed in Kiss makeup. And Roseland Gardens is a real small venue. And they were like, they're like, yeah, Kiss, motherfucker, we're number one. I was like, I look at my buddy, I'm like, we ain't get no tickets for Kiss. And they were dressed as Kiss. Summer '93, I also saw Rage Against the Machine for the first time.
Yeah.
And I went and bought their cassette tape. That's how long ago that was. I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this? I used to bring a Soundgarden cassette tape to that gym that Richie Gaspari used to train out of in '91. The Soundgarden one with the song, the guitar Jesus Christ pose.
Jesus Christ,
Like that guitar. I tell the kids whenever it's going on in the gym, I go, guys, you ain't ready for this guitar, but sometimes I got to have you listen to music you ain't ready for. Like, you ain't ready for this, but something, we got to do what we ain't ready for. The guitar for that song is
Jesus Christ pose.
Yeah. It's like, dun, 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 and it's nuts. That is crazy.
Think about the change in popular music. I mean, that was popular. And, the one I have at the school, I get to choose the music. I can't stand crap music.
Dude, they listen to some weird shit.
So I made a rule. I said, you get to determine the music when you out total me.
Yep.
And you sell more books than me. So when that happens, you're free to, because I can't, I don't like really loud music because I can't coach.
Yes.
And, kids have to be able to hear
Right.
But I also can't stand crap music. So I made a playlist, and it's crazy because I put stuff in that's—
Is it on Spotify? Is your playlist on Spotify?
No. I have literally like a iPod from like 15 years ago that I have probably, I don't know, 200 different albums on there.
Oh, nice.
So I just, but it goes like, the kids are like, they get the easy stuff like the Deftones or Raging Speedhorn, and then they got like, I put Gorgoroth on there, black metal, stuff that's like, this is too bad, kid. You're getting introduced. They got like Pantera and Scissor Fight and some of the normal bands, but
they don't even know what that stuff is. Some of the music they listen to, I'm like, I'll go through Spotify. If you type in like gym hype, gym motivation, I'm like, none of this has hyped me up. I've gone through like 20 of these playlists.
Yeah.
And I say, I can't even count. I tell them, I go, you can't count on the people. You got to count on yourself to make the music.
Well, they know I don't like crap music. So as soon as I walk in the weight room, someone runs over and changes the channel, changes the music.
That's funny.
Coach Wendler's here. Come on.
I remember a guy working the front desk of Dynamic Fitness, where at that gym, and he'd say, you got that tape with Rusty Cage? Got that tape? Yeah.
You ever hear Johnny Cash do that?
I did. And also, speaking of Asbury Park, there's sometimes I'll be listening to, playlists, and it'll be like, this is Johnny Cash coming to you from Stone Pony in Asbury Park. And I'm like, holy crap. It is awesome.
It's funny because I don't even, my wife, I think, has Spotify or Pandora or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know like how to do any of that. I literally I just got the CD and the album. I buy all the physical media.
Oh, nice.
So Yeah, because I got a whole stack of CDs here, but like what happens when your computer takes a dump where you can't, like the internet's not working? How are you gonna listen to music?
That'll never happen, Jim. That only happened in like the late 90s.
You don't think with all this shit that's going on now?
Dude, I don't know. Listen, with your physical like CDs, that's like me with like all the old books
Yeah.
and magazines.
Dude, I still copy and paste stuff and print it out so I can have a physical
all the time. If
Yeah.
it's an ebook, I send it to a printer to get it
Yep.
printed out. I love even just the smell of a
Yep.
book. I know that sounds a little strange, but it's like,
the one thing about like heavy metal music is because it's so underground, like real they take a great job of packaging up stuff. The artwork
Yes.
is spectacular.
Right.
This is you're not going to be able to see this, but inside they have all a short story written in here.
yeah.
You can't really see it. All kinds
No,
of
I see it.
stuff.
Yeah.
And they do a tremendous job of packaging. So when you do, pay 15 or 20 bucks for a record, you get not just the music, you get everything with it. And I enjoy that.
I do. There's something special about it.
Yes, and you're never gonna make these bands never gonna make a living doing this, but if they spent the time working on their craft, I'm not gonna legally download anything. I'm just gonna, what's what, so I can spend $10, like big fucking deal.
But Jim, also like in that interview with Dick Dale and what you said with you've done this through interviews where these bands, they're like, yeah, I remained a post office worker.
Yeah.
And I tell that to these guys who want to run gyms. I go, listen to me, you get 1,000 square foot spot, or you rent space in the back of a wrestling club. You get a squat rack, a sled, you make some sandbags, and you do your regular work. And now you're like what you said earlier. I don't have to train John Smith.
No,
I could train, I could do it however I want. I tell the kids all the time, I'm like, I told them yesterday, I'm like, I'm going to burn this fucking gym down. I'm like, you guys suck today. I'll burn this gym down. And they're like, no, give us the keys. And another kid's like, he's like, that's worse than burning it down. Like they get like, they do like, I'm like, it's not even a full moon and you guys are idiots today. But, I'm full-time at the high school. The years before I was full-time elementary, then I had the college stuff. I feel there's no, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not doing this. I don't care what you say. Like, I've got a family, I've got a wife and kids. And also I like not just having this one thing. I'm just running the gym. I like having more than one thing. And I like not having to do that one thing 8 hours a day.
Yeah, well, it's a good way of losing your passion for the thing, because the one thing I don't think people understand is if you love training, if you own a gym, you better love business more than you love training.
Yeah. And I've spent a lot of time and energy learning business and learning what works. And I found a real simple system to make it work in a small setup. So, I tell people, look, do the math. Our membership is $195 a month. We hover around 75 members, and I do 15 hours of coaching a week. That's actually, I'm doing 15 hours of coaching because my coaches are furloughed.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do less than that. And look, if I burn the gym down, I'll get a barn. I guarantee you I will still be coach, just like you. Like if you didn't love training, you never would have invited the kids over.
No. Because that's it's funny because it was a bigger pain in the ass than going over to school, because I had 5 days a week. Juliet took a younger group too. It cuts into our private time. I don't like people in my house.
Right.
This is my house. It's not their house. And I know it sounds maybe selfish, but this is where I am. You don't get to go where I live. It was a weird thing, but the kids also earned that right to, because I knew they were going to show up and give it their all, and it meant something to them.
It's special.
Yeah. Now, if I was here my first year, that wouldn't have happened. There's
no doubt.
The kids, built up a great amount of they're my admiration for their work ethic and what they wanted. And, you know, you spend all this time with them, you want them to succeed more than anything.
I
And,
know. I hope the kids really understand how guys like you and I, we love them and we want nothing more than to see them succeed, which is I always tell them, I'm tough on you because I care. So
yeah,
if I'm ignoring you and let you skip and let you slack, that's a red flag. And
like
I'd say,
when the coaches stop yelling, that means they stop caring, not
yeah,
yelling, but
and that's fatal.
yeah,
You know, if we go back to what you said earlier about how would I want my own son to get coached,
yeah,
that's what I tell all coaches now. I go, step outside your body. What would you want that coach? How would you want the whole thing happening if that was your son or daughter? You
yeah,
know, you want them checking their phone? Do you want them being high energy, passionate, attentive to detail? You want them talking to them about life?
yeah.
And you hear it. It's obvious the parents basically, revolted to the town to shut down and said, we want weightlifting.
Yeah.
That means they know that what you're doing is changing their life.
Yeah, it has more worth than just
Squatting
being a
heavier.
babysitter, yeah, or
Yes.
whatever. So, but it's funny because you get the kids at a very young age, and they're just these little pipsqueaks, and then senior year they're full grown dudes who you don't want to like fuck with.
I know. You're like,
They're like
damn, now I
karate
can't mess
chopping.
with this kid. Yep.
Damn
Now
it.
this kid could kick my ass.
Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
but yeah, it's and then a lot of the kids went on to play college. We had kids come back,
Mhm.
and almost all of them say the same thing, like we don't get anything close to the detail that we had here, and that is kind of sucks because even if you're at a small school, like your training and coaching should be better than at your high school. I really, it sucks that's like,
Jim, yeah. Look, and I know you and we're not putting down other coaches, but I do think kind of what we were just talking about, the music and ebooks, there was a different respect for your knowledge that you had to earn. You trained at Westside or you went and sought out this book and you bought it versus, yeah, it's on my phone. I'll just kind of swipe through it. Let me check what's on Instagram. You don't you don't learn like that. And even talking about details, you had mentioned you were at Westside once and a guy said to you, and ironically, I had the same conversation with Jesse Burdick because he did it. A guy said to you after you squatted, you're like, Jim, he says, Jim, take your left foot and move it over an inch.
yeah,
And Jesse Burdick had done that during a seminar we did with him and Mark Bell like 10, 11 years ago. Those details do count. I mean, you just wrote an article about not getting too caught up in the minutia of things, but I do catch myself saying, dude, just put your feet an inch wider, just
yeah.
that little
Well, that
coach's eye.
attention to detail comes into play once you have the big rocks, so to speak, done.
Yes.
The problem is when people look at the minutia, it's the stuff that doesn't matter.
Correct.
And and you only get that attention to detail when you've kind of been around it for a while. That story was my hands were all the way out to the sides, and I brought my hands in, I don't know, maybe an inch or 2 inches on each side, and it completely changed my technique and everything. Just but it was Todd Brock. He was just sitting there, watching me squat, and I was like, dude, this is the problem I'm having. And he's like, move your hand. It had nothing to do with my upper, had nothing
Right.
to do with this, but you know how it is. The changes.
The
So
coach's eye or the lifter's eye. And
Yep.
that's also how I learned, lifting at gyms was the older guys, the strong guys mentored you and you shut your mouth and you listened. I remember Herman teaching me how to deadlift. He saw me deadlifting. He walked up to me.
No.
He said, let me show you something. And I stepped away. That's what I was actually working to attain, to work in a gym where somebody saw me and said, all right, this kid's been showing up day after day.
Yeah.
He's working. Let me help him. And I tried helping a kid. It was a while ago. It may have been when I had first opened my gym, and here and there I would just go to the gym next door to lift, to use some machines. But I saw a kid doing something wrong. And I was like, hey, man, can I show you something? And I showed it to him. He's like, that's not what I saw. I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, I'm thinking to myself, bro, I've been fucking lifting like twice as long as you've been alive. I just tried to help you and you were like, go fuck
Yeah.
yourself. And
No,
I'm thinking to myself, I ain't ever helping somebody again out of the
Yeah.
blue like that.
That's, I always tell the story when I first started training, the guy that kind of mentored me didn't say anything to me for like a year.
I remember this story. This is a great story.
And then, you have to kind of earn the right. And then I got a lot of hate mail for that. Like, what kind of asshole coach? It's like, well, dude, and he told me, he's like, I've helped so many people and they just quit.
That's
So
right.
what's the point? I have to make sure that you were serious and stuff. And, we don't, the one thing that drives me nuts is, I don't really have that luxury, so to speak, here, because, you don't want the kids to get hurt and stuff. But until you show up for about 6 months, you don't get much special treatment here. Like we had a couple kids, 2 kids, I think, come in, quit, come in, quit, come in. And now I'm just done with them. I'm like, I don't care if you come back, because I remember that one of those kids, both those kids, I should say, I had spent so much time with them and not with anyone else. And then like, they don't respect it. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to respect you either. And I'm sorry, but
Because it was handed
we
to
got
them.
50 other kids who come in here every single day.
Who's showing up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care what go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was given too freely. That's always the issue. So
Yes.
when somebody wants to give me something, I'm like, no, don't send that to me. Let me just like buy it from you. Don't do it. But then sometimes adults have sometimes said, if somebody wants to gift you something, it's because they respect you, because they value you. If you say no to them, it's rude to them. So sometimes you just got to say yes. But with kids, you went earlier, you said about extreme ownership. And as coaches, we oftentimes, like you said, you go home, you're like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? But there are times where it's like, you know what? If you're not showing up, then I can't help you. And that is not my fault that you're choosing to come and not show up. And so that is where the kid has to meet you versus me.
There is a level of commitment that needs to be shown. And
Simple
the good thing is, in general, in sports like wrestling and football especially, it's hard to be a spectator and be on the team. Like, you're going to get your ass kicked. So there's a little like, well, you showed up to practice. You may have gotten your ass kicked all the time, but you keep on coming back. You're okay with me. It's a little easier to kind of just punch the clock in basketball or baseball when maybe you don't really have to make that kind of same commitment, because you can be on the basketball team and there's no real consequences. Like when you're wrestling or football, even if you don't play practice, there's consequences. You're gonna get your ass kicked a little bit.
It's an immediate feedback type sport. My daughter plays tennis, so that 1-against-1 is like, sometimes you get your ass kicked and you're like, it's very emotional. I think that's why those sports, you get so pissed off at losing that you want to find a way, to get better.
It's only your fault. That's the other thing.
What's interesting, Jim, what I've seen in football players, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was afraid to play football in high school because the guys were huge.
Yeah.
I've seen football players, they weigh 120 freshman year, they weigh 140 junior year. I'm like, aren't you afraid to get destroyed? Don't you want to get bigger and eat more? You're 140 pounds. I'd be afraid. And I'm like,
the other thing you have to understand is a lot of those kids, I played with a guy who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, who was a all Pac-12 safety, 165 pounds if he was lucky, had zero fear, knocked the shit out of you. I mean, just end your life. And he was like, motherfucker, here we go. Damn. Those are the guys I'm always afraid of, because it's like, well, why are you only 150 pounds and you're over here,
I haven't seen too many of those smaller kicking ass. I'm looking for, like, they're small because maybe there's just enough spots on the team where they're just kind of part of the team.
Yeah, there's always that. But when you start, like, occasionally you'll see a kid who maybe plays D line and he's like, 175 pounds, but he's the toughest he's tough as shit.
Tough.
And there's an old story there's a guy that I knew who was like 6'6", 265, insane athlete, got a full ride was a starter on a Division I team and the ACC. He had like a black belt and a whole bunch of stuff, and just a total physical motherfucker. And one day he was out with his buddies, and I knew one of we had a common friend, and the guy, they were all out to eat, and my buddy saw this big jack dude with a gun. He's like, why the fuck do you have a gun? Of all the people in this world that knows how to handle themselves. He said, well, I know if they fuck with me, they're crazy. So I'm going to need a gun. It was like, you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah, that shit is funny. All right, Jim. So, man, we said we're going to go an hour. We friggin' went 2 hours.
Yeah, that's all right, brother.
Listen,
That's
JimWendler.com, my bro. And you were hacked on social. I was wondering where your Instagram and all that went. Not that you're like a big Instagram guy, but here and there you post once every 3 months, and you know the Russians hacked you.
Yeah, we got hit with a whole bunch of hate stuff. We got Instagram just came up yesterday for the first time. We got our everything taken down. We got our website fucking hacked. You know, we got hit with a bunch of hate speech stuff because we
I was hacked.
Yeah,
I got hacked like 5 years ago, and so if you do need the guy, it was like
yeah. You sent me a text. I totally forgot.
Okay, I didn't remember if I texted you.
Yeah, we got smashed with a whole bunch of
it's
hate stuff,
dude. Your site, yeah, they take over your website. Yeah. You can't even go in, and it was I can't remember what country he said it was from, but they start going in. It's crazy. So and you can't do anything about it.
We got almost everything back so far. It was just we got hit with a bunch of strikes prior by Facebook for that. You can't use the term, I think was body weight responsibility together.
Yeah. Responsible for your own body. Hey, this guy's on our shit list.
He's basically Hitler. I mean,
they have a meeting, and then today's meeting is about this man. He spoke about push-ups and personal responsibility, and everybody's like, "Oh my God,
burn him!"
So we will not stand for this.
Yeah, we just got Instagram back yesterday, and it was funny because I just once we got hit, I was like, "Yeah," and then I never went on it. I didn't care.
Right
now, it's like, God, my life got so much better when I didn't have to deal with all that stuff.
I cannot wait for the day to be off of social.
If I didn't have a business, I have no reason.
I am with you, dude. If I did not have a business, boom, done. So it does help because it's where the eyeballs are. People are on.
It's I always consider it like Lex Luthor. He had all the brains, but he only used it for bad. That's had all the potential in the world, but But I don't. It's necessary. And you know what? If the one thing I've learned is you just make a post and you just let it. That's all it is, and then you don't have to peruse on there. You don't have to.
Exactly.
That's your own choice. And
Truth.
Whatever. I think we're going to start doing YouTube stuff, like just me sitting down. I'm just going to address a problem. I'll just talk, and then
it's great.
5 or 10 minute video. So I don't know. We just got to get all that stuff worked out, and I got to get my ass in gear. Because man, if you don't want to do it, it's tough.
You're right. You could like overthink it, but I think Q&A would be great. I know when you do the posts on Instagram, you get hundreds of back and forth comments. So it would be, YouTube would be great. And you could eliminate comments if you don't want to see that crap or whatever, but YouTube would be great for you to get those videos up.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys, like I said, you and Smitty made a huge difference. You guys gave me the A-okay. I didn't know half this shit. You guys were a lot into this stuff, like the business stuff.
I just never waited for perfect. I kind of knew that's how the gym and everything started was. I was like, man, I can't wait for this shit to be perfect. I'm just going to, getting it done is going to be 100% more than zero.
Yeah. That's
how I looked at everything.
Well, the one thing I remember when I went up for a job at the University of Cincinnati. I didn't get it, obviously, but I remember I was fairly young at the time, and I was like, "Man, this sucks, man. I'm not that experienced. I don't know that much." I'm like, and then I remember thinking, there's like 100 guys who could do the job better than me, but there's like 10,000 that couldn't. I'm like, you're all right, buddy. Like, you're going to be fine. And I remember where I was when I had that realization. I was like, all right, like, I'm not perfect, but I'm better than a lot of other people too. So, you know, that's one thing I always remind myself, even with with the high school stuff, I have massive limitations, you know how that is. Like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. I don't want to say I'm closed-minded, but principles I believe in. So I'm not just going to say, well, we're going to do this today.
Yeah. I
But
learned.
it's better to have a plan and principles than nothing.
Yeah. And Buddy Lee said it, I called him, I had messaged him through the Q&A in 03. And I still remember what he said on the phone. He's like, Zach, every training program is flawed.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a green light, not to suck, but it was like, listen, it'll never be perfect, but do your damn best.
Yeah.
Do your damn best.
And,
So,
I can't think of his name now. Damn it. He said something like about technique. He's like, listen, it needs to be about 85% perfect. As long as you're not going to get hurt and you're achieving the things that you want within the exercise, you're fine. You don't have to nitpick all the little stuff, because that comes later, when they become more experienced. And
sometimes they're too
young kids. I'm like, when we bench, keep your butt on the bench, don't slam the bar down, be under control, full range of movement, all the other stuff comes later.
Yeah. You wrote that recent article, Strong and Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to, your
head gets filled with crap. And the other thing is, most of these people who are giving you these cues and ideas, they're just creating content. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Dude, some of the shit out there is shit.
Anyway.
All right, buddy.
All right, so Zach, I'll see you, bud.
Jim, you're the best. Thanks for coming on. I'll be in touch.
Appreciate
Thanks to
it.
everybody for listening. Jim,
Bye-bye.
later, my